There. Okay, welcome to the weekend Bucky call, and our special guest of honor tonight is Kelly. I'm sure he doesn't want to be made a big deal of, but he's a big deal, and we're glad you're here, Kelly. And we've done everything we can over the last few weeks to like keep bringing it back to like business and keep bringing it back to applied things. But I got to tell you, I'm a little bit nervous about tonight because we want to finish up on synergetics at 224 is we've been discussing topology, angular topology for the last couple of weeks. And I think we're getting a grip on this, but I'm slow. And so I've been beating the cart. I'm going to present some stuff tonight that I hope is okay. Then we're going to move ahead with lines and triangles and tetrahedrons and circles and get through our content. Susan, good to have you here. And notice we have, yeah, no kidding. And do you have your microphone, Susan? Because maybe you could just tell us how you're feeling and what you expect tonight, and and you can get the meeting started.
Amazing.
We can't hear you. Oh, there you are. You just started.
I'm really, really happy to be with you. I've missed the last two nights. Kelly, so many prayers from all my friends and my family going out for you. Wayne and I have been speaking and texting and just praying you back into our universe. And I'm excited to see if I can make some headway on understanding angular topology. Roffers, how do you feel and what would you like to get out of today?
Well, thank you, Susan. I'm actually delighted to have Kelly back. He's been greatly missed, and obviously we're all very concerned about him. So it's great to see him actually looking better. And even his voice is back. So that's great, actually. So very happy about that. And what I expect today is again to explore more about angular topology, whatever that means. And again, looking forward to more learning. Thank you. Joseph, how do you feel and what do you expect to get out today?
Thanks, Raffers. I feel good. I too wanted to say that how grateful I am that Kelly's back. I have I have a list of people. It's a pretty long list that I've made over the past 5 years, 3 or 4 years that I'm grateful for, and everybody on this call is on that list. So when I see somebody missing, it's a big deal. I'm happy. I'm very happy to see Kelly back, and happy to continue to try and learn a little bit more about angular topology. If I learn to say it, that would be a progress. But no, this is something that I had thought about in the past, and I just really need to start getting my mind around it again and spend a little bit of time with it. So I'm grateful for this 2-hour session. So let's see. Kelly,
How do I feel?
How do you feel? What would you like to get out of today?
Well, I'm feeling a lot better. Last week I wanted to come back, but I just couldn't. I won't go into why I couldn't, but I just couldn't get here. And what do I want to get out of it? I want to get out of 2 hours of just being on the call. So thank you for that. And I want to acknowledge Steve and Manu and everyone else that's kept the call going.
Mathematics began as a way to quantify our world, to measure land, predict the motions of planets.
Amazing what you can do when you're committed. So thank you for that. I just really want to get out of being on the call for 2 hours. So after that, we'll see. Who else is there? Pete, how are you feeling and what do you want to get out of the call?
Thanks, Kelly. I've got a lot of mixed emotions going on today. Kat and I have had a chat about a whole lot of things, and one of the things that we find ourselves in a situation where we're very time pressured during the week, and Sunday is basically our only family time. And it's been severely impinged on of recent times, so we haven't had family time per se. So with both gratitude for everything that everyone is and for everything that has happened with the Bucky call, and lots of love to all of you, we're not going to be regular guests on this anymore. We'll be occasional guests. And like I said, there's a lot of mixed emotions about that one. But we discussed it, and both of us individually came to the point that it was the right thing to do. So I have a lot of love and gratitude to every single person here, putting up with my brain's inability to grasp some of Bucky's supposedly simple things. And at a personal level, I think everyone here has made a deep impact on me and my business and how I implement my life. I'm feeling grateful that Kelly's, on recovery. And I'm looking forward to trying to actually get an understanding of what topography is today. Because that one, because I didn't quite get it last week. Kat, how do you feel, and what would you like to get out of today?
Thanks, Pete. Just like Peter said, it's a little bit of things when you enjoy and like something that you do, but at the same time, when you see your life from other aspects, you need to acknowledge that you need time to nourish certain aspects that have been sort of neglected. Causes a little bit of, but again, as he said, it's not like we're not coming back, just that we just perhaps need to give us some time to use our Sunday to, to nourish the relationship as a family as well. So I'm very grateful to see Kelly here, because Peter talked to Kelly early in the week and said that he sounded much, much better. And not only knowing that, but actually seeing you and see how much healthier do you look compared to last time I saw you is brings a lot of joy, because you are an amazing mentor, a great friend, and there's a lot of love for you. So you have been missed a lot. What I expect to get out of today is something else that I haven't learned, understand, or apprehend, because it's always very edifying, the conversations that we got here. So I look forward to that, to what we got today. Manu, how do you feel when you're going to get out of today?
I feel good. I really feel good. Kelly, welcome back. It's good to see you here. Last time there was hope, but you went again. But we've been praying and hoping, and here you are. Thank you all. I feel good and appreciative of the time that everybody put onto making this meeting live, onto making it organic. It has own expansion and contractions, but that's life. That's the way it is. What I expect is that we continue. I'm very, in natural fact, very happy that we've been grasping the fundamental of the spherical geometry that Bucky made the foundation of his to get to his breakthroughs in terms of understanding the universe and applying it into building all those artifacts that we know. And I believe that if you grasp that too, at least a little bit, there is a lot that we can do into changing our environment for the betterment of all of those who are in that vicinity. So that's what I expect. I expect that we continue on this itinerary and that we discover together, and then we apply and share our applications. Anna, how do you feel? What do you expect?
Hi, hello everybody. Manu, thank you very much. Kelly, so good to see you back. It's right. It's we've waited as well, and hoping and praying as well. So it's really good to see you back. Yeah. Yep. So today, especially even more so, really excited to see you and all of us here. The team is even more complete now to move forward with our discussions. Yeah, looking forward to today's discussion. Okay, who else hasn't gone? Okay, Steve, over to you.
All right.
Phil, and what do you expect to get out today?
Well, I'll tell you, I feel when I see the numbers on the call, I feel a little bit inadequate. But when I see the strength of the energy on the call, I'm rewarded. Because of course the right people show up for the right call at the right time. And that's the important part. I'm still feeling a little intrepid about this because I would love to be able to finish this concept of angular topology and go through those definitions of line and triangle and tetrahedron and sphere and really have a comprehension of what those things are about. And I just want to talk about how fundamental this is, this angular topology. Manu referred to it as spherical geometry. I think those are pretty much synonyms, but it's the geometry of thought. It's the geometry of being. It's the geometry of structures. It's the geometry of systems, which includes my business, my family, and all of my relationships. When I consider this whole thing, you got the dot right here, and it's easy just to see this dot as a dot, and it's looking for another dot, but this dot actually exists as an origin point of energy, and that is right here, and that's what this thing is looking. It's looking for something. It's looking for awareness. It's looking for awareness of others. And this is the angular topology right here. We're defining, it doesn't matter how far this is apart. It's not about topographic awareness. It's topological. It's this angular thing. And then all of a sudden in comes another otherness, and whammo, we have this connection. Now we have awareness. Their topology identifies this structure. But interestingly, still, both of these guys are still, they got this angular energy just flowing off of them. These guys are origin points, and they're struggling to create relationships, to build systems, maybe is one way to look at it. And so then all of a sudden now we get another character here who connects in, and we've got, we have a three-dimensional reality right there. So, and most people define reality in terms, okay, one dimension, then you create a line at 90 degrees to it, and you've got 2 dimensions. Then you create a line at 90 degrees to it, and you have 3 dimensions. And now Bucky goes one step further, because he says, look, this isn't going to survive. You've got to have a minimum structure. This guy out here is looking for that connection here too, right? And when this guy gets that connection, suddenly we have a 4-dimensional reality that manifests like this. And one of the big epiphanies that I have realized is that this is just a metaphor for a 4-dimensional reality. In other words, angular topology is about understanding the structure of the universe and how nothing exists outside of a system. The macro system is the universe. But inside of that are a bunch of little tetrahedrons all hooked around. And I think there are 4 faces here. There are 4 dimensions. But instead of having that 4th face at 90 degrees, which our brain cannot comprehend, Bucky said, here, let's put the 4th face and put all of them at 60 degrees. And now we have a working model in 3D space of a 4-dimensional reality. We live in a 4-dimensional reality. And that's what this is trying to teach us. And as the more I understand topology, the more I begin to understand this 4th dimension. Okay, comments, questions from this guy to this guy. 4 dimensions, 4 faces, 4 angular relationships. Questions, comments, go.
Rafa, how do you feel and what you want to get out of today?
What?
What? No, I've been actually. I've done my bit.
Really? Sorry. I forgot.
Yes.
I didn't remember. I didn't see you. Because I
No
saw
worries.
Steven starting with Susan. So.
No,
That's
no,
a
no,
great
no,
way
no.
to deflect on the question, Catalina. That's a great
Exactly.
way. But since you've called on Raffers, go ahead, Raffers.
Okay, I'll show you my view on that, on topology. See, let me show you this.
Okay.
This is basically the same that you showed. This is just the expansion.
It is the same thing.
But it's the same. The fact that
And let me make this point, Raffers. Topologically, it is exactly the same thing. Dimensionally, it's different.
Yeah, but the same
right?
topology. The same
But topology. What
Yeah.
Raffers held up is exactly the same as this. Go ahead, Raffers. Continue. Good point.
No, so basically, to me, it shows, to me, it means a clear understanding of, folding and unfolding universe. It all relates, and Manu has a great way to demonstrate it with a piece of paper and how a small tetrahedron can actually become a bigger one as you fold it or unfold it. It expands or contracts. And that means moving away from the concept of topography, which is altitude, depth, and I'm not very good at math, as you can see, but still, it gets in a much greater picture. And to me, actually relates to even, sacred geometry. We see all these forms, all these shapes interacting. They are so a nice demonstration of the relationship in terms of, again, topology, as move as, I think it was Venus and Jupiter, or Mars and Jupiter, and how they move around the sun, they create these beautiful shapes as they relate to each other. And I wasn't able to understand any of that before I came into these calls. And it means, as I have a clear understanding of universe and how reality actually works, that means I can understand why it's so important to have tetra thoughts. Because again, it relates to the way universe works. And 4 words means 4 faces. And me, as the creator, or the person relating those words, I'm at the center. So I could even see myself understanding 4 dimensions, as Steve just demonstrated. So it's brilliant because it relates to how we think and how we relate and interrelate. So it's not enough to relate 2 concepts, which is the duality. I can create another duality and then bring those 4 together, and then I have a tetrahedron, which is what we have been doing from the very beginning. I mean, when Kelly left us last time, so I think we've come a long way from those initial discussions that have been very, very important, I believe. So we have to have Kelly back. So right at the other end of the discussions.
Right on. So Raffers, would you hold up your tetrahedron again?
Absolutely.
Because we actually read last week, we had a reading that actually said that what Raffers is holding right now and what I'm holding right now are exactly the same thing topologically.
Right.
And so I want to, just to support you guys in coming to this, we read last week, this thing right here. And Joe, you were a reader last week. Do you want to read 22403?
Sure. 22403. Structural systems are local, closed, and finite. They include all geometric forms, symmetric, or asymmetric, simple or complex. Structural systems can have only one inside and only one outside. 2 or more structures may be concentric and triangularly interconnected to operate as one structure.
And when Raffers holds up his giant tetrahedron, and I hold this up, what words of Bucky's actually describe the relationship between my tetrahedron and Raffer's tetrahedron?
Structural, that they're finite.
They're
Uh,
finite. Do they include geometric forms, symmetric and asymmetric? Are both of ours include symmetric forms?
Yes,
Yeah.
and then they're both simple and complex as
They're
well.
both simple and complex.
Right. So
What
mean,
else are they?
They they're interconnected.
They are interconnected. And how are these interconnected? And this is really powerful for me as a vision of when we start understanding our businesses, when we are understanding our relationships and our thoughts, they are interconnected. And some of them are what?
Concentric.
And some of them are
triangularly interconnected
to operate as
one structure. And this kind of goes back to like what is locally relevant and what is irrelevant. I remember. So like it depends on what your structure is, correct? Is that a correct way? Okay.
And so to me, this is profound because topographically, what Raffers is holding up when I'm holding up are totally different. If we build a map, we'd have different dimensions, there'd be different sizes of things, but topologically, it's the same thing. And I think that's a big important thing of building a business. How many people see this much of the system operating and don't see all that infrastructure going on down below that Raffers is holding up? So it's a matter of moving outside. In order to understand a three-dimensional operation, I have to move into a fourth dimension. If I don't move into that fourth dimension, I don't see it all. I just see a little part. Comments, questions?
Exploring the unknown.
That is connected.
And embracing, that is connected, and it's
or
embracing
interconnected concentrically or triangularly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And naturally, you see, this is what most people think about.
Right. The triangle.
This is a flat, yes, you see, a two planes. Even we will talk about 360 degrees vision. It's again flat. So we move into, tetrahedrons and spheres. We just come into a completely different space.
Cool.
I think one of the things we talked about, or I'm trying to get my brains around, is that our perception collapses. Our action as an observer collapses one dimension. And even what's funny, and I think I'm grappling with this, I almost maybe have it, that as we perceive 3D reality, we actually are perceiving a series of 2D images over time, and our brains are bringing those together, collating them, and turning it into a three-dimensional perspective. So it's collapsed even again, if that makes sense. 4D beings visualizing 3D reality and doing it with a series of integrated 2D pictures.
Right on. So my brain takes pictures, my eyeballs are taking pictures every 20 to 80 milliseconds. And then because of focus, my brain is stacking those things and my brain says, oh, this is closer and this is further away. And the brain has learned how to categorize all those things and collapse those 2D pictures into a 3D reality. I think that's what you said, right, Susan?
I think so. That's what I'm kind of wrestling with. And should we stop and get Alfonso integrated in?
Sure, let's do it.
Hello, guys. How are you?
How are you feeling, and what do you expect out of today?
I'm feeling great. Finally, I left dinners, Saturday dinners, and I had the space to join you. No, because right now here in Mexico it's 9:30 on Saturday, so it's basically you go with your wife to the movies. or you get your head cut. That's either way, no, it's as you wish. So, I've been following you all over the time, and I also have been thinking about the structures, and I've been putting them in a perspective, no, in a different perspective. And I came up, no, with a theory that might be right, might be wrong, no, but I think the first structure is a triangle one, because it is the point with your beliefs. So when you express your beliefs, you will express your beliefs in a triangular form. The first point is, what do you believe? And then you come with a triangle form. So, and from there, everything starts building up. But it's very important for you to have a true belief, no? And those beliefs, I think, become in triangular forms. So that's my expectation of the great call I can join today.
Wonderful. Thank you for sharing. Okay, so a part of me wants to go into the multiple dimension aspect, and maybe we can do that. So because I want to go through and really declare this topography versus topology. And I've done a lot of research that I won't share all of tonight, but I'll hint to it. But I think it's important we understand this idea of dimensionality and the idea of folding space, and what Susan talked about in terms of how I take these pictures and I put them together. And I want to reinforce the idea that the only way that I can understand a two-dimensional reality is by being having a three-dimensional perception. And the only way I can understand my 3D reality is to have a four-dimensional perception, which is the invitation of this piece right here. 4 faces connected at 60 degrees instead of 90 degrees. So let's watch a video to reinforce that whole thing, shall we? All righty. Yes, please.
Okay. Before that, it's important to grasp something that is really physical, is that all of this, topologically speaking, has to do with bending, with folding, as Steve said. In order to enclose anything, you need to fold. And one of the characteristics of structure, it is closed, closed, closed. One of the definition of a structure, yes, it is closed. You have an inside and an outside.
Mm-hmm.
And in order to close anything, you have to fold.
You have to fold or bend, and that sets up the video exactly perfectly.
That is absolutely fundamental. You have an inside, outside, primal or primary, because it is folded and is enclosed. Enclosed to include an inside, and then separate from the outside.
Inside, outside. 4 windows, 4 dimensions, 4 views. So let's take a look at this. We got some comments going on over here in the thing, so that's really good. All right, here we go. And we're going to pick this up in the middle. And if you want to watch the whole thing, you can watch the whole thing. But here we go, from the middle.
Once again, it'll be more convenient for us as we imagine the higher dimensions if we can think of the third dimension in this way. The third dimension is what you fold through to jump from one point to another in the dimension below. The first 3 dimensions can be described with these words: length, width, and depth.
Now, if he would have folded those things, he would have been more accurate. Most people think of dimensions in terms of connecting lines. No, it's about folding the previous dimension. It's about doubling and folding. Dual, folded duals. But he did it wrong, but you'll hear this twisting and turning in a second.
What word can we assign to the 4th dimension? One answer would be duration. If we think of ourselves as we were 1 minute ago, and then imagine ourselves as we are at this moment, the line we could draw from the 1 minute ago version to the right now version would be a line in the 4th dimension.
Now, This is one way to perceive a four-dimensional reality. Bucky has another way, but it's one way.
If you were to see your body in the fourth dimension, you'd be like a long undulating snake with your embryonic self at one end and your deceased self at the other. But because we live from moment to moment in the third dimension, we're like our second dimensional flatlanders. Just like that flatlander who could only see two-dimensional cross-sections of objects from the dimension above, we, as three-dimensional creatures, can only see three-dimensional cross-sections of our fourth-dimensional self. One of the most intriguing aspects of there being one dimension stacked on another is that down here in the dimensions below, we can be unaware of our motion in the dimensions above.
One way to understand not one dimension stacked on the other, but one dimension folded from the other. Dual and folded, dual and folded. I'm going to redo this video Bucky style, but I think it works on basics so far. Here we go.
Here's a simple example. If we make a Mobius strip, take a long strip of paper, add one twist to it and tape the ends together, and draw a line down the length of it, our line will eventually be on both sides of the paper before it meets back with itself. It appears, somewhat amazingly, that the strip has only one side, so it must be a representation of a two-dimensional object. And this means that a two-dimensional flatlander, traveling down the line we just drew, would end up back where they started without ever feeling like they had left the second dimension. In reality, they would be looping and twisting in the third dimension, even though to them it felt like they were traveling in a straight line. The fourth dimension, time, feels like a straight line to us, moving from the past to the future. But that straight line in the fourth dimension is, like the Mobius strip, actually twisting and turning in the dimension above. So the long undulating snake that is us will feel like it is moving in a straight line in the fourth dimension, but there will actually be, in the fifth dimension, a multitude of paths that we could branch to at any given moment. Those branches will be influenced by our own choice, chance, and the actions of others. Quantum physics tells us that the subatomic particles that make up our world are collapsed from waves of probability simply by the act of observation. In the picture we are drawing for ourselves here, we can now start to see how each of us are collapsing the indeterminate wave of probable futures contained in the fifth dimension into the fourth dimensional line that we are experiencing as time.
Okay, comments and questions.
Steve,
Note.
thank you.
Okay, Anna, go on. You are.
Yeah, thank you very much. Actually, these past few sessions have been the first time that I've actually understood why time is considered the fourth dimension. Because we hear people talk about it, no clue how it even shows up. But that was actually very, very clear. Yeah, but I understand from our discussions, the fourth dimension is different from Bucky's perspective. So all cool. Yeah, thank you very much.
Cool. Yeah, seeing time as a dimension is one way to look at a four-dimensional reality from a three-dimensional paradigm. Bucky would say that it's different, and so would Einstein, and so would Schrodinger, and so would probably Euler. But they go against Bohr and Heisenberg with the Copenhagen interpretation of the split screen experiment. And that's complicated, but I've been going through that all this week. So that's very good. If you get a grip on it, that's really cool. Did you see how that video reinforced the twisting and turning that Manu said? And it reinforced the collapse of the wave function. Although I think that Bucky would say that the relationship is reversed. That the observer doesn't collapse the wave function, that the wave function collapses in order to be observed, and that the wave function is conscious about what it's doing. And that's what the design is about. That's why the system energy wants to connect. I said too much. Comments, questions?
Could you go say that again? Because the collapsing I thought was done by us.
That's right.
Because
Okay.
of the probabilities.
Let me come in here. I was just going to actually highlight the relationship of this, or the analogy of this, with what we do in real life.
Right.
Okay. Here you are, and there are multiple possibilities. when you focus, that is when you make a choice to go a certain angle, a certain direction, you have collapsed the possibilities into lesser. Is it clear?
I like that. Do you guys like that?
So
Yes.
we always say what make us is the ability to decide, to choose. And that choosing is a reduction
Right.
of the multiple. It's like you are pruning a tree.
Right.
You're pruning to favor one form, one direction.
But you're pruning the tree. In other words, the tree already exists.
Yes,
I don't
the tree
create
is
the
a tree, whether pruned or not, it is a tree.
Exactly. And I don't create the tree by observing it. The tree
Yes.
is there. It's already a system. It exists. And I can collapse my frame of reference or focus. I like focus better than collapse.
Yes,
And
because
then
if you have a tree, if you want it to spread laterally or to grow higher coniferous, like a pine tree, it depends on how you shape it and how you preserve the top, because it grows from the top. Now, if I cut the top of it, the tree is likely going to do this, to expand laterally. So I've made a choice. I have made a choice and I've focused. I've channeled the energy of a tree. I've reduced it to a certain form, to a certain direction. That's the way I will kind of tend to grasp this, what you call collapse.
And
collapse, yes.
If I understand the system of treeness, I will prune the tree. If I don't understand the system, I'll chop off something and kill the tree.
Exactly.
The tree exists outside of me. It's absolute. I need to understand the system.
And Steve just says something absolutely important. If I understand what is a tree, how the tree functions. And that brings to me the dual of choice, that is responsibility.
Beautiful. Comments, questions?
Okay.
This is going to be a really odd kind of question, but does this have anything to do, like, does this relate to how our brain works with pruning?
And if it does, Joe, how would it do that?
Essentially, that's the process by which it eliminates, right? It eliminates connections as from childhood to adulthood. And so I'm not like an expert in this area, but essentially it's how our thoughts and our mind processes the world.
Joe, you're right. But the only thing that you need to understand that is with a lag.
That's the
lag. Brain is always after a being. The tree is. Now the brain shoots pictures, has slices of the tree and reconstruct, put it together in a way that you like to see in order to decide, for you to decide. So in other words, you understood the tree. There are slices, only pieces of a tree that you have, and then you reconstruct the reality of what the tree is going to be after your pruning by putting together those slices to build an image of a whole. And that's what is going to guide your actions.
Manuel, I think what you're describing is, again, brain and mind. So your brain stores the various images or the pictures that you take through your senses. What the mind does is relate the various images and then build a whole understanding of the tree as such. So it's brain and mind. And I think that's one of the great contributions of or Bucky, understanding what the brain does and what the mind does, rather than the current confusion about brain and mind. Your
Another way
brain
of
stores
saying
and
it,
retrieves, and your mind relates and interrelates. You need to relate and interrelate what you perceive.
but I wanted to bring it, I think, I dare say a little bit simpler. Whatever you perceive and see is always the projection of something that is onto a space that is of a lesser complexity for you to grasp. And that's what another definition of that collapse. If I want to, when I want to represent the face of something, I take a flat sheet and then I draw on it. Mostly I will draw a head as an oval. But we know that from our experience, that is not an oval. It has a depth, it has all of the variation. But I will draw a zero. I will say, this is a head. And I'll put some eyes, some nose, some mouth, and I'll put some ears. That's what I will represent. But is that reality? Exactly.
But it comes from reality. It's a generalization from reality.
It comes from my perception. In other words, my projection of reality. That's what it comes from.
My perception, I derive a sense of reality from my perception.
Yes.
My reality is a derivative of my perception. And if I don't open my mind, my brain, if I get stuck in the past, I'm not going to see what really is true. I'm going to see what I thought I saw yesterday and what I thought I saw the day before. Comments, questions? How to perceive and see reality. Go ahead.
So I think this is getting back to the idea of, and then Steve and I use this term because it came from an old science fiction book, but the idea of grok, the word grok is to like completely understand. And yet if we, in the process of perceiving, I have to collapse at least one dimension of anything that I'm trying to perceive, I think that's that little bit of separation from complete understanding that allows 3D reality to persist. So.
Cool. I just stuck grok in the chat line down there. It's from a book called Stranger in a Strange Land by Robert Heinlein. It's a really good book. Literally, the word grok means to drink, but because I'm mostly water, when I drink something, it just goes through me and I get it at a kernel level. I'm now it. It is now me. This is grokking. Cool. Any comments or questions?
Yes, I do have something to say. I realize now why this Sunday meets has been so exciting and so enriching, right? Because what we are talking, the way we are speaking to one another here, all the ideas that come up and the comments, it's not, see, what people tend to talk about is interdisciplinary and multidisciplinary and so on, but we're not speaking in those terms. We're actually speaking in a multidimensional term, right? So I realized that a lot of discussions that you have with people, like it came up over and over again, why we keep saying that we can't discuss like this, this way with many of our friends and family. And I realized it's because we are speaking in a multidimensional manner. And that's exactly where the shift needs to happen. If you wanna grow people to be able to speak like this, then the whole shift, because my mind is like buzzing around education a lot. When I research, there's always there's the discipline, right? What we study, and it always comes up, interdisciplinary, and even the understanding of multidisciplinary is something beyond a lot of what most teachers can handle. But we have to teach in a multidimensional manner, because I'm so excited about topology. right? Because yeah, I did geography. I learned topography, and yeah, the way first and foremost, it can be very exciting, but it's never written in any manner that excites in our textbooks here in Asia. But the just throwing in topology just changes everything, right? So I think those things need to change. And I'm gonna have to rethink a lot of things with our for our right. So yes, looking at I intend to write a book. Yeah, I've got one coming out. But now to talk about the direction of education, I think this is what needs to come out. Multi-dimensional education.
Cool.
Right. Thank you. That you put something in my head right there.
Cool.
Thank you.
So where my brain went to was somewhat more abstract and metaphysical. But with the 4 dimensions that you guys were talking about and the 4 aspects of that, I was kind of thinking along the lines of, well, I'll put it in business terms. If in business terms you've got a goal or an intention to, I don't know, double your turnover, for example, you've got to have a level of faith to that unseen possibility that is in reality in some future time, but you've got to then bring it back and act as if it's already in present time and you're just making it happen. And that same discipline of having faith to an unseen vision, I don't necessarily understand the topology completely, but I get that if I put a boundary on my intentions and my clarity, and then I follow through that with commitment, that the fact that the only time is now, I can bend time and I can, like, if I wanted to lose a stone or 5 kilos or whatever, and that my logical brain could map that out and say that's going to take, I don't know, 8 months, 10 months and require this, but I can act from the space that I'm already seeing and feeling that particular 4 aspects of it as if it's a reality today. And I think there's a metaphysics of faith in the unseen. You know, what we, because our whether our senses are 2-dimensional, 3-dimensional, or 6 dimensions, it really doesn't matter. It's whatever we perceive, we can say, well, that's real. But quite often it's having faith that what we can't see, we can create it. So anyway, that's where my brain went.
Comments or questions? Okay, so go ahead. Go ahead, Susan.
Anu, you had your statement just before we started into this round, and you ended with the word responsibility. And that word just always pops for me because I realize how much of a negative and heavy connotation is with that word. And one of my favorite things that I learned from Sadhguru was that responsibility is the ability to respond. And so in that moment, it encompasses the idea that that I'm at least an observer. If I'm going to respond, I have to see what is. It gives me that space to be, even if I'm not at cause, I'm not at effect. And I was just so taken with that word responsibility that if you can remember what you said, I would love, I think it was around choice and focus, and by that act, collapsing a probability field. But if you got it back, I would love to hear it again.
Is that to Mano?
Yeah.
We have the recording. So we'll just mark that it appears sometime this far into the conversation. Manu, can you remember what it was?
Yes.
Well, then
you said in order to do anything onto the system, you need to understand the system first. So if you understand the system and then you act consequent to understanding, there is a notion of first choice, and then responsibility, of a choice.
Right.
That is of a owning the consequences of that choice.
Right. So in the video, we heard that when that wave field collapses, it collapses to a certain reality based on three things. It says based on choice, chance, and the decisions of others, the choices of others. Bucky would say there is no chance. Bucky would say, Bucky would say that there's a system. And if you get in touch with the system, you're going to know how to interconnect and connect with the system. And this goes along, Peter, with your idea of having faith in something unseen. I know people who have faith in some of the stupidest, it's real. What they have faith in is really real, but it's not part of this system. And if it's not part of the system, I can't interconnect with it. I have to be concentric or triangular. I used to have a triangulated relationship with that entity or that reality, or I have to be concentric. Bucky we just read that in 22403, I think we read 3. Okay, comments. Go ahead.
Just one aspect that might not be completely related to this, but related to what you just said. The concentric thing that Bucky talks about is the in without being eaten by the. Let me say again. The core of the earth is the core of the earth doing whatever it has to do. It is in the mantle, but the mantle is a mantle. You get me? They are in that relationship to function as constituent of one that is earth. But the core is there and the mantle is round it, but the core is not collapsed into the mantle. The core is still the core. It's like when we represent micro and macro. Micro is not eaten by macro. Micro is micro. And then we are in between those representations. I think it's quite important to notice that, because it is very easy to think that being in means being part of that you are in. No, you are in relationship with that.
Okay, comments, questions? Okay, so I want to shift now to this definition of an actual definition of what topology is out in the rest of the world. I think we're seeing that the topology, well, I think this next little slide I have prepared is going to help. Okay, so here are from Synergetics to 224.0 angular topology. And the question is, what is topology? And how does topology relate to topography? And I think it has a big lot to do with Manu's discussion right now about the core and the center of the earth, and how the earth is manifesting in a certain dimension, a certain shape, with these different mantles of exterior possibility, but the topology stays the same. So the math of topology defines the length, width, height, or depth of an object. The math of topology defines the characteristics of the shape of the object. Got it? So this goes back to Roffers and my tetrahedrons. What's that? Go ahead, Joe.
So that's kind of getting into topologically versus topographically.
Exactly right.
Okay. All right. So,
and just like Roffers and I held up a tetrahedron, it was the same tetrahedron topologically, but it manifested different topographically. Now, we kind of did this last week, but I think it's important to really get this. And so let's show this video here.
Jealousy can kill
usually give these up in advance, and
Hi, my name is Henry Sagerman. This is Topology Joke. This is joint work with Keen and Crane. So there's an old joke in topology. So a topologist is somebody who can't tell the difference between a coffee mug and a donut.
okay, this is the old topology joke. A topologist cannot tell the difference between a coffee mug and a donut. We reviewed this last time. Does everybody get this?
No.
Topographically, if we measure this, that cup is way different than that donut. But it's actually the same system with a different topography. What makes the donut the same as the cup?
The hole in the center.
The hole in the center. Does everybody get that? Do you get that you can take that donut and smush it into the cup? Do you get that?
Without breaking it.
Without breaking it.
Yes.
Do you guys get that? I'm going to show you the picture one more time. Do you see how you can take that donut and make it into a cup without breaking the donut?
That's what the potter does every day for a living.
That's what does? A potter does every day for a
Yeah,
living.
Potter, yeah.
Yeah.
Except they'll change the topology because the guy takes a clump of clay and puts a hole in it. And now he can
Yes.
build that cup. He changes the
Right.
topology of a clump of clay by putting in a hole, it becomes a different system. And here is another graphic that actually shows, and I'm going to speed this up to as fast as I can, double speed, because this is, now watch this. Notice the bottom of this cup here. It's changing right now. Okay, look at that. Do you see that? It's just starting to come up. In other words, the bottom of the cup just expanded. Topologically, this hammer and that cup are the same thing. Here we go. There you go. And now we're going to do the same thing. Somehow this has a lot to do with business, and I'm pondering this.
Micro and
Now-
macro.
Yeah, wow, interesting. It's the same system and it manifests differently. Is this how I invent a cup? I start with a donut and I make a cup. You know what? If I start with a cup and I try to put a handle on it, come back here. If I start with a cup and I try to put a handle on it, the handle will probably break off, right?
Right.
Because I'm gonna have to glue that handle on there somewhere. And it's coming from the same system.
Right.
It leaves, Steve, just what you say there.
Okay.
One of the biggest characteristics of a topology is that of continuity. Continuity. When you take a cup without handle and you take a handle, you glue it. There is a second material that you put, that is the glue. What is resin or not? So it is no more continuous. The surface is no more continuous. It's like if you have turned the surface into something. But in topology, there is no tearing. There is only folding. I repeat, in topology, there is no tearing. There is no fault.
Mhm.
It is only turning and twisting. It is only folding.
And Manu pointed out last time, if I take a sheet of paper and I crumple it into a little ball, it has the same topology. It's a sheet of paper. But if I take that sheet of paper and I rip it, it's no longer a sheet of paper.
And notice that when you rip it off, you cannot put it back together as
The
a
same-
sheet of paper
It never goes
individually.
back the same way.
All right. In order recycling, the recycling industry takes the paper that has been ripped and go and put it together in the process of recycling in order to make another sheet. But there is no guarantee that the atoms that were on that sheet of paper are still the same because you didn't tag them. You get me? And this is very, very profound. It's very profound in relationship to the processes that we have, in relationship to the really identification of energy, in a relationship to derivation, and in relationship to the second principle of thermodynamics. We're not going to get into that now, but there's a relationship. If I take a piece of paper and I tear it, it's virtually impossible to get that sheet of paper exactly the same. Now, ponder that with the principle of uncertainty of Heisenberg. Or with the second law of thermodynamics.
Cool.
Okay.
Okay, comments or questions?
I don't know how this ties to what you just said, Manu, but it's where my brain went. So maybe my brain's weird. But
Well, we know
recently we just took over another business, and we're incorporating that into our existing business. And in that process, I'm facilitating taking the relationship that the people had with the previous business and using the same customers and the same services and the same everything and changing that relationship to our business. And there are similarities that I have to work with, but there are complexities and differences to make that transition. But fundamentally, the donut and the cup are the same thing in this example. I'm just going to manage the process in the middle.
Well, I think that the thing of it is if you can figure out how to put that handle on that glass, you've invented something that'll change the world. It was the same system. You just figured out something that was compatible with it. And basically you move from one system to another system, interestingly. Go ahead.
No, so is it, I think that there's an interesting parallel, and I think it relates to what Peter was saying. Though, in a way, though, there's this idea of organic growth where you kind of have a company that grows organically or something evolves out of the company. So think about Amazon. They were an online marketplace that sold products, and now they're a cloud computing company because that company was having to buy so many servers that they found out they had to use cloud technology in order to save money and become more efficient. Then they found a way to commoditize that. So they then organically turned the cup in, or turned the whole the into something else, so that they actually they again, like they saw the interconnectedness, and they were able to change themselves. I think what Peter's talking about is growing different. It's a different type of way. You're growing by essentially putting the sheets of paper together, right? You're kind of taking two parts that are different. And this is what happens with companies a lot of times that don't grow organically and don't stimulate their or put money into, like, essentially grow with innovation, versus the M&A companies that just grow and by buying other companies. And this has been something of a problem for like maybe something like an IBM, where there is not as much innovation. They just use cash to buy things. And there's this distinction of one thing that's able to grow organically and see the system itself evolve, where the other one doesn't. Does that make sense at all?
Yes, it made a lot of sense, Joe. But that's called merger or acquisition.
Right.
So you're taking different entities and you're putting them together. But then there is always a problem that is the core to that action, is that you try to minimize the friction.
Right.
And what is that friction in terms of thermodynamics?
But
Okay.
the other thing with that is that tying it to the 4 dimensions, someone asked me the other day, or commented, I should say, oh, well, what's the difference between buying a business and advertising? And I said, time. I'm buying time. I could advertise and market and grow organically to double the business, which is what we did by acquiring this. But that might take 12 months, 24 months. It's an unknown. By acquiring the business, which from beginning to end took, maybe a month, I inverted commas, purchased time. I bent time. So the merger and the acquisition from my side is not just transforming what's there to what I conceive it to be. It's allowing me to grow in a much quicker manner.
And so Peter, it's not like you bought a cup and then put a handle on it. What you bought was the customers.
Exactly.
That's what you bought. You didn't buy the business, the dog kennel, the physical location, the cages. You bought the freaking customers.
Yeah.
And a lot of people, I think what Joe's point was that a lot of businesses, when they go into a growth mode, don't see where they're growing. And what Google did was they said, wow, if we keep doing what we're doing, we're going to have more. Either we're going to be dependent on another server company, or we're going to have to get in the server business. And so now Google runs all if my understanding is that Google runs all the servers for NASA. And I think they run it for many parts of the federal government, don't they, Joe?
Yeah, I mean, it's an Amazon. It was Amazon.
Oh, it was Amazon.
Yeah, and the thing is that I was just thinking, one is like you're evolving, you're shaping with the handle, as opposed to gluing the handle on.
Right
on. That was what I was kind of thinking. The cheap
guy is going to glue the handle on.
Exactly.
But somebody who really understands the system is going to say, hey, we've got to integrate this handle into the system. We're no longer doing cups, we're doing donuts.
Exactly.
Yeah.
They see the donut and they see the cup.
Yeah.
And they get into both, and they organically are connected.
Yeah.
Whereas the other ones are, you're gluing the handle on, and you're actually, who knows what else.
And so you're saying it's Amazon, Jeff Bezos, that runs do you guys get this? Jeff Bezos runs the computers for NASA. And what did Jeff Bezos just do?
Went to space.
Went into space with his own freaking rocket ship. Jeff Bezos understands he's a server business.
Right.
And so,
but they were an online market.
But he's also a space program because he has the servers to do it. Right? Okay, cool. Comments, questions? Okay, so I want to talk about concave, convex, in, out, this sine cosine thing. We discussed it a lot last week, but this is part of this angular topology. And so let's take a look at a couple things here. Concave, convex, sine, cosine. What's the relationship between concave, convex, sine, and cosine?
The cyclic unity.
Cyclic unity or cyclic unity.
Yeah.
Do you remember we talked about this?
Yeah.
And did Ann leave? Dadgummit. She was here last time when we did this, but she had to leave. Did she do a comment? I didn't see her comment that she left, but I don't see her on the system here. But we talked about sine and cosine and angular, this unity, cyclic unity. There we go. This is electromagnetic energy, a representation of electromagnetic energy. Here's the electro, here's the magnetic, right? Magnetic points are in red. Electric point, this is electricity right here. Do you see sine and cosine? Sine and cosine? Do you see convex, concave?
Yes. And the in-betweenness as well.
And the in-betweenness. And this comes back to the Philippine wine dance that we showed last week, where in the one video that's very short, here's the sine and cosine function of this wave function. And there's the Philippine wine dance showing how human beings, in a cultural tradition, how human beings seemed intuitively know about sine and cosine. There's the one, and there's the other. Sine, cosine. Comments, questions?
I have a note about that as a question. It's like, it has, and I'm trying to read my own handwriting, the collapse of the wave function.
Yeah.
I'm trying to actually figure that out. What I
Well,
was right.
take this electricity, and I'll give you one silly metaphor. I collapse that wave function and my light turns on.
Okay.
So here I have the wave function of electromagnetism.
Right.
And when I collapse that function my light goes on. My heater turns on. Same topology, different topography. Eh?
Right.
Okay, so then when we talk about multiple dimensions, let's talk about this. This is the idea that it really takes a 3D perspective to understand a 2D reality. It takes a 4D perspective to understand a 3D reality. This is the metaphor of the 4D reality. 4 faces, 4 vector points combined into one structure. Beautiful little thing. And we talked about in the video, it says, the reality we see is influenced by our own choice, chance, and the choices of others. Bucky would say, hey, there is no chance. There's a system. You either see it or you don't. It's either visible or it's invisible. And otherness. So these elements in quantum physics are very much what Bucky talks about.
Well, you know that word chance is subject to many misunderstanding that could actually put people at opposite side. There are people who understand chance in a deterministic way or deterministic influence.
Right.
And there is chance as opportunities.
Right.
If I understand chance as the possibilities, then it makes the whole sense.
Yeah.
But if I'm those who say chance is just some outside of my control determination of what I'm going to be, then it's very different.
Yeah, this word try. You know, people, when I say, oh, yeah. I tried that. It's like I have an excuse built in because I tried it. But the word try comes from trial. And in a trial, there's an outcome. Evidence is presented and a judgment is made. And if there's no judgment, it's a mistrial. It's not a try, it's a mistrial. So, comments, questions? Okay. Let's see here. Are we now ready to read Bucky? So with our understanding of topology, let's read some more Bucky. Before we do, any comments or questions before we jump over the cliff? Okay, here we go. And you're back. Or maybe it's just my...
I think it was your monitor.
Yeah, it's just the way my gallery is showing over here. Oh, there we go. Geez, okay, now I've got it. The way I was coming up, I wasn't getting all 9 people. Okay, here we go. So let's read some of this, and having studied what we've studied and learned what we've learned, let's see what makes sense here. Okay. Joe, do you want to read?
Sure. 224.05 line. A line has 2 vertexes with angles around each of its vertexal ends equal to 0. The sum of these angles is 0. The sum of the vertexes 2 times angular unity, which is 360, is 720 degrees. The remainder of 0 degrees from 720 degrees is 720 degrees, or 2 unities, or 1 tetrahedron QED.
Okay. Comments, questions? We got the line right with the 2 vertexes. Everybody got that right?
Mhm.
Everybody sees how the angles are 0? But the sum of the 2 vertexes, 360 and 360, is 720. 0 from 720 is 720, or 2 unities. And then he jumps to 1 tetrahedron. So if somebody wants to explain that to me, I'm happy to do that.
2 unities.
Yeah.
Or 1 tetrahedron. Is that the 1440?
Well, yeah, I suppose it is, because now we got 720 and 720 is 1440. And so I don't know how he says the remainder of this from this is 2 unities or 1 tetrahedron. I don't get that. This is supposed to be 1440. Comments, questions? What I did was I just took that and broke it out on each sentence. A line has 2 vertexes with angles around each of its vertexial ends equaling 0. The sum of the angles is 0. The sum of the vertexes, 2 times angular unity, is 360. I actually should bring that down here like that. Then the remainder of 0 from 720 is 720, or 2 unities, 1 tetrahedron. Unless he's talking about concave, convex, and negative imaginary numbers. Imagine, that this really is a tetrahedron. We just aren't seeing the other parts of it.
No, hello, Stefan.
Thank you. Go for
Stefan, I think what he's thinking is that if you're just seeing 360 in a line, you can see, your eyes can see 360. But if you have 2 units, if you put 2 units, then you would see 720. So you could go all the way envisioning things. So what I think he's trying to tell you is that in a line, if you just see a line, you can go 360. But if you see it in 2 dimensions, then you would see 720. Right.
I think you're saying the same thing here. Here's a vertex, it's 360. Here's a vertex, it's 360. Those 2 together are 720.
Right.
Right.
What I don't understand is the last statement, the remainder of 0.
Can you come back, see a little bit?
What?
Can you get back a little bit?
You mean stop sharing screen?
No. Just
up.
again, the first what we're reading and what we're.
What he wanted is just score.
Okay. The remainder of 0 degree from 7 is 720, or 2 angular unities.
That's what it says right here.
It is 2 angular unities. Okay. And then
Or
defining a tetrahedron. Now, how do you define a tetrahedron?
4 angular unities.
Exactly.
Okay, I don't
You
I'm
define
saying
a
that if two
tetrahedron
units,
no,
if
you define, yeah, come on. You define a tetrahedron by bringing, if you have a representation of a closed packed spheres, by bringing 4 spheres all together. Steve, you show the top there? You show your tetrahedron that you have?
Oh, my tetrahedron?
Yeah.
you said tetrahedron is
Okay, if you take
1440.
and if you took that tetrahedron and you collapse the edges, it becomes a closed pack of 4 spheres.
Yeah.
And the closed pack of 4 spheres, if you link the centers of those spheres, it is a tetrahedron.
Yeah, and rather than collapse.
Now, that is the same thing as bringing 2 dualities at 90-degree intersecting. When you fold them, same thing.
Well, the text
Or
was
60.
saying that the 0 degrees led 720. 720 is 1 unity, and said that the remainder is 2 unities, and the tetrahedron is 1440. It means that the 2 unities, 720, equal to
A
440.
tetrahedron is not 1440. It's not. A tetrahedron does never exist on its own. It's only always concave, convex. It's always in a dual. That's what makes the 720, the 1440. A tetrahedron is 720, 1 tetrahedron. You can see if demonstrated those angles. If you take all the angles of a tetrahedron, adding them together is 720. It's not 1440. What is 1440 is a dual relationship of a tetrahedron with its convex.
This is the we read last time.
Yes.
Which says, when expressed in terms of cyclic unity, the sum of the angles around the vertexes of a structural system plus 720 equals the number of vertexes of the system multiplied by 360. And we broke that down. So we took the first statement, talking about cyclic unity, the sum of the angles around all the vertexes of a structure system plus 720 equals X. So that's what we did here. I did the math. 12 times 60 degrees, or there's the arithmetic, equals 720. I take that 720, I add 720, and I get 1440. And you're saying that the 720 I'm adding is what, Manu?
No, Steve, yes. First, in the demo that you have there, notice that your tetrahedron and the plane, the composition of it is the same, right? For you to demonstrate. If you take the 12 angles that you have, right, 12 times 60 is 720. So 1 tetrahedron is 720 degrees. But when you were reading, you omitted in your reading, it is plus 720 degrees to make the 1440. Yeah. And that plus 720 degree, it is a duality. It is your tetrahedron that is concave with a convex, an open tetrahedron. It's always, remember, it is always a duality coexisting, the concave and the convex, always.
So there's 2
times 720. That's what makes the 1440. You have demonstrated it here. And what Bucky said is that for every system, the number of vertices times 360 degrees is the sum of angular included plus 720. That's what he said. If you go back to the definition on top. Go back.
I got it. I got it. I'm seeing the pieces together. Here it is right here. When expressed in cyclic unity, the sum of the angles around all the vertexes of a structure plus 720 equals the number of vertex of the system multiplied by 360. This is a sentence by sentence breakout of that paragraph. So these words and these words are exactly the same. Different is punctuation only.
Yes. But one tetrahedron is 720. It's not 1440.
I got
it's
it.
The duality that is convex concave, that is 1440. Two tetrahedron.
So the convex aspect is 720. The concave aspect is 720. And together with the concave and the convex, it's 1440.
Yes. And that is a cyclic unity because they always coexist. They always. There's no one without the other. When you talk about concave, the convex is implied. If you talk about convex, the concave is implied. It is a relationship that always coexists.
Like sine and cosine.
Yes. You cannot talk about sine without cosine. It exists, always coexists.
So is cyclic unity 360, 720, 1440, or all of the above?
No, the cyclic unity is 1440. The unity is 720. The cyclic unity is two cycles. And that's what we've always seen with the electron. You remember all of those movies. You say you have to go twice in order to find yourself in the same position. If you just went 720 degrees, you will be in the opposite position. In other way, going 700 degrees, go from here to here. 700 degree transformation is from here to here. Transformation is projection. If I take this tetrahedron and I project it onto a plane that is perpendicular to the upper vertex here, I'm going to have a mirror image. This is what I'm going to have.
Manu, I have a question. What's 360?
No, wait, hold on.
What's
if I do that twice, if I do again twice, I come back to exactly what it was, the position.
But then what's
answer
360?
Alfonso's question. What is 360?
360 is rotation on a plane. It is on a face like this. This is 360 degrees. I go around like this. This is 360. But I cannot describe this by just going around this. I have to also go around like this. Another 360. This is another way of saying it. It makes the 720. And remember that this 360 and that 360 are perpendicular. Sine and cosine.
So,
if you take the wave function to go from one to define one sine cycle is 360 degrees, because the one like this, the one phase is 180, the second phase, the positive phase is 180, the negative phase is 180. That's 360.
So,
and then you take the blue, the positive phase is 180, the negative phase is 180. That's 360. The electromagnetic is that 360 plus 360 is 360 times 4.
Right on.
Yeah.
So does everybody see that?
So
the blue
so
is
what's
360.
720 means that it goes 360, 360, and then another 360, 360, right?
Okay. Take the electromagnetic representation here. Take the blue first. If you start, you've gone from one point to another, it is 360 for the positive phase or the negative phase at the beginning. That is 360. If you go, another one is another, no. I'm saying rubbish here. If you go, the first one is 180. If you go, the positive is another 180. That is 360 degrees.
Okay, so.
And then if you take now the red, that is horizontal like this, you do the same, you do another 360 degrees. In order to form an electromagnetic unit, you need those two. That is a tetrahedron. A unit of electromagnetic energy is 720 degrees. But a unit never exists on its own. It's always with something, in relationship to something. And that thing is dual. So if I have 720 of one, there's another 720 that is hidden from me.
Okay.
So the cyclic, now the cycle unity is 720 plus 720 is 1440.
So what sometimes I've been thinking about these numbers, and what I came up to is that our life cycle is 2 years. So this means that you would have to, every 2 years, you can establish goals. You cannot put goals every December. You have to put goals every 2 years because it's a cycle. So every 2 years, you go on a 720 cycle. Would that
makes sense. That makes sense, because what we talked about last week was that if I'm on the planet Earth and the sun comes up one day and goes over my head and then it goes down and then I'm dark for the next day, I don't know there's night until that sun comes up again.
Right.
I have to see 2 complete cycles in order to know, oh, this is a day.
Right. So if you, for example, if you see your life, you would have to see it in cycles of 2 years. And what I've been thinking is that once you're conceived and the cycle ends when you start walking, which is almost 2 years. So, and the cycles on our lives go over and over and over 2 years, 2 years, 2 years. But people will put goals every year. So they'll come Christmas and then it'll come New Year's and say, establish new goals. So if you do that, then you're breaking the life cycle of 2 years. So, but if you wait 2 years to establish new goals, then the cycle comes about and all the goals are completed in that cycle. But you cannot do it in years of one cycle.
That makes sense. That's what Bucky's saying.
And I think actually the murmuration graphic actually shows this nicely, the one to the side there.
How so?
The 720, if it looks like you see the 2 cycles.
Yeah.
I think that really kind of calls attention to what you're talking about. Yeah, the one at the bottom to the left.
Yeah, that's right. That exactly. So if we can take a lesson today, would be if we show people that they cannot put goals every year, they have to put goals every other year, and it's a cycle of our way in this world.
Joe.
Yes.
The murmuration shows 1440. It doesn't show 720. It shows 1440
because it's 360 up here.
If you take the equator of the murmuration, north of the equator is 720. South of the equator is 720.
Okay.
That's what makes the 6 degrees of freedom. You understand what I'm saying?
Yes.
If you take the murmuration, okay? If you take the equator of that, the equator plane, the great circle of equator, cutting that into 2, to the north, you have a geodesic dome. To the south, you have another geodesic dome. This is 720 degree. That is 720 degree. The 2 is 1440. A sphere is 1440. A sphere is not 720.
Okay.
A sphere is 2 tetrahedra that fuse. Steve likes to show it. The fusion of tetrahedron. That is a sphere. One into other.
Yeah, that's one. Yeah, that's the one duality. That you're right. You're right. I messed that up. Sorry about that.
Well, I got this right and got that wrong. So I'm going to change this to 1440.
Yeah.
Okay. Carlos, could you explain to me again why Alfonso, sorry. Alfonso, could you explain the the distinction you were making as to why 1 year is not a cycle but 2 years is? Because that didn't land for me. I'm sorry.
So if you see your life, if you like divide your life into two into two, no, divide everything, for example, I'm 54, you divide that into two. So this means every 2 years is one cycle. And you can establish cycles, you can establish goals at the beginning of every cycle. And this starts when you were in your mom's womb, and the cycle started from day one that you were conceived until you walked, almost about the days you walked, which is, it would be exactly 2 years. After that, you went into maternity school, no? And that was 2 cycles of 4 years, no? 2 cycles. Then the kids go to primary, and in school, primary school will be 6 years, which means 3 cycles. And then high school and preparatoria, which is the next, it's 6 years, that's another 3 cycles. And each time you reach a cycle, because to go over, if you divide the circle in 122 degrees, no, because it would be 24 like pies to go around if you divide it in 122. So what that would do is that you would have 24 different like pies in a circle of 122 degrees, and that would go one side. That's the 2 cycles. So if you have 122, 122, 122, when you go around on the half, that would be 1 year, because it would be 12 months. And then the other 12 months would be completing the cycle. So to go around in one cycle, in one circle, you need 2 years. More or less, Peter?
Yeah, I understood the words you said. I still didn't really land as to why a cycle is 2 years as the 1 year, because there are cycles in nature, like what you said about from conception to walking, that are 2 years. But
look, for example, coffee.
There are many cycles that are 360 days or 365 days, if you want to be.
Watch this. I sell coffee, right? So the cycle of the coffee is, once you put the seed on the land, it will take 4 years for the coffee to first give the first crop of coffee. It'll take 4 years. And then the coffee tree will give you 10 years, and then it will die, and you have to restart the process again. So the cycles of the coffee, the first 6 months, the seed services with the land. Then the next 6 months, it will begin to understand. Then the next 6 months, it will grow. And then the next 6 months, it will give results. So it's a process. It's really a process of 4 things that go on in the seed for it to come up and give a result. After this cycle goes around for 4 years, which means 2 cycles, then the plant will give you coffee. And it goes more or less the same as in lemons and in oranges and in trees that grow fruit. Will usually last 4 years before you can have the fruit in abundance. In the first year, it will just give you maybe 1 coffee. It will tell you, hey, I'm a coffee. But if you want to sell it, you would have to wait for 4 years for the tree to be ready to produce coffee. And it's more about the same as we are. If you change goals in 1 year, you're in the bottom of the cycle. But if you only put goals every 2 years, then you go around, as you were saying, like Manu was saying, you go 720.
And I think that's this discussion is all part of how do I look at a system
Right.
and how do I maximize the efficiency of that system? Because we can now bring, I mean, I got a great video here, not a video, but a great, this is a pretty cool picture of cycles within cycles within cycles. And of course, the depth that I see on this is going to depend how my business is going to look, right? I just start off with circles inside of circles. And this, Alfonso, is kind of showing your duality, right?
Right.
But the duality can manifest in many, many ways. And so I really enjoyed the graphics down here as a way to do that, as a way to show that. I also, go ahead, comments, questions, go ahead.
I'm going to say that I'm in Peter's camp and believe that depending on which system you look at.
Suzanne, we cannot hear you.
You're a little distorted.
I'm sorry, I don't know how to make that better.
It's better now.
I was just saying, I agree with Peter that depending on which system you look at and which way you look at it, the periodicity of your cycle could vary tremendously, and you would get very different information if you looked at it in different cyclic periods. So I appreciate what Alfonso's saying, but I think that each system or a different way of looking at it could have a different period on that cycle.
Exactly.
From the point of view of,
go ahead.
Can I go on? From the point of view of design,
right?
That is very important. You cannot be unorthodox in terms of cycling, because your casting will depend on it, on what you see. And from the point of view of design, what Alfonso is saying is very important, is that you understand what is going on. And then you cast in a way that, let's just take the example of if you live, if your cycle was a white swan cycle. So you live in the world, you always seen a white swan. And you live according to that. Well, you need to readjust, or your system will need to readjust once the black swan appears. So knowing now that there is a black swan, I will cast in a way that I'm no more surprised with a black swan. In other words, the way I structure my business will be for it to be able to withstand the black swan effect, for example. Right. So you cannot be kind of unorthodox of what is a cycle. You need to, there are cycles, there are many, many cycles that act and interact, and you have to design, taking cognizance of that, depending of what your mission is. What problem do you want to solve?
Right on.
Yeah.
So we're getting close to the end. Comments?
Just one thing. If for example in a marriage, people get divorced usually in the first year, and it's because they break the cycle because they think everything must be perfect within a year. But if people would wait 2 years, then there would be 50% less divorces. And we have this study because here in Mexico, I went to the to watch and to see the information of 1,000 new couples. And once they go over the second year, then that cycle, they start to understand each other, and then they'll grow each other, and then they'll give results each other. But if somebody gets married and says in 1 year everything must be perfect, they usually get divorced. So the cycles of the human usually go in periods of 2 years, and then you restart and put new goals. That's the investigation I have done within 1,000 couples here in Mexico.
Good, and Google supports you on that. I just did a quick search on how many people get divorced first year, and it actually points it out. I put the link in the thing. Okay, drawing to a, go ahead.
Just before you move on there, Steve, one of the things that in that course of conversation between everyone then, we kind of get stuck in cycles that don't actually serve us anymore. And the easiest example of that is our education system. Our education system is based on the cycles of when the industrial age started and they started taking people off farms to put them into factories. They educated them enough for being able to pull the right button on the factory. But they gave them holidays based on when the people were required for extra labor for planting and harvesting. And so our holidays for schools worldwide are based on an agrarian system of Europe 400 years ago. And that particular cycle has very little bearing on our world today, yet we continue with that cycle because of cosmic habit force. In the same way that QWERTY on typewriters, they brought that in because printers were too slow to be able to hit the buttons in time, so they slowed down to QWERTY. The computers that we have today are, I don't know how much faster than the printing presses that came in, but I'm going to say at least 1,000 times more faster, able to handle speed, but we're still tied to that cycle of the system of how that's laid out. And when you take that idea and you put it into, for example, regenerative farming, there are things that farmers have been doing because their great, however many back grandfathers or parents did, but they're not in any way a cycle that serves our modern knowledge.
Right. So what Peter, what you must do is that as we have this information of 720 and 720 and 1,440, what the great lesson for tonight is, well, watch for the cycles, watch your cycle, and every system has a different cycle, but beware and try to understand the cycles of life and the cycles of the business and the cycles of the people in the business. And if you do not understand this, you would be losing gravity and magnetism. And if you do not consider this in your system, then the system will be broke within 2 years.
Cool. And I think that's what the invitation of this discussion is about investigating those cycles. I have a couple more graphics here that I'm going to share because I get to share. And here's one of them. This is the white hole, black hole concept, and it reinforces the duality of at least the duals, right? There's always two-ness, minimum of two-ness. There can be more than two, but there's a minimum of two. White hole, black hole. I did some research. Oh, are you guys even seeing that?
Yes.
Okay, good. All right, great. I did some research and found some other videos together. And so I went ahead and edited them together. And here's some other videos talking about the duality and getting us to start thinking in terms of spherical geometry that Manu brought up in the beginning, angular topology rather than linear arithmetic relationships. So this shows some spherical aspects culminating in yin yang.
Did you send that link out?
I think I sent it to a couple people, but I haven't. I'll include it in this video this time. I'll include it in the links I send out for this weekend call. So now this is mind-blowing because this really gives you down to the system of interrelationships and interconnectedness. And it's a great invitation to stop thinking linearly and start thinking in terms of a multidimensional geometry.
Excellent, Steve. Do you realize that the yin and the yang always intersect or cut at 90 degrees. Do you see that? Always 90 degrees.
Right here, it shows it very explicitly, doesn't it?
Yeah.
You see it connecting at 90 degrees rather than on,
Always.
yeah. And then notice how the in and out and the betweenness as this thing precesses through its different shapes.
Just like the arm of the girl.
And so these are the elements of the system. And most people see a yin yang symbol. They don't see the interrelationships and the interconnectedness. This one blows my mind. And now it switches over. And so now the black dot is just transposing on the plane. And in order for the black dot to move across that plane, everything else has to move around it because it is a system. And this is one way to take that two-dimensional entity of the yin yang and see it as a three-dimensional, in a three-dimensional perspective. I just thought this was mind-blowing. So I'm going to put this link in that goes out this week as well. Again, most people see this as a two-dimensional flat, not dynamic object. And as Manu pointed out, yin and yang is at 90 degrees. There's your 720. And realizing that each of those dots are a yin yang symbol in and of themselves. So it's a fractal. And that this configuration is actually a dot in a bigger yin yang as it moves from system to system. This is the duality. This is the convex concave. This is the sine and the cosine. This is the yin and the yang. This is duality, a minimum of two. Okay. That's our sharing tonight. Hey, Roffers, how you feeling and what's your takeaway tonight? You have to unlock. Yeah. Hear your microphone. I caught you when you were.
Okay.
Thank you.
Can you hear me now? Okay, good. No, great, actually, a great call today. Thank you, Steve, and thank you, Manu. And also Alfonso, great contributions, right? And my takeaway today is that choice collapses my perception of reality. I have multiple directions or multiple possibilities or infinite possibilities. When I choose, I just collapse reality into one choice, which is not one, because again, it's dual. So the unity is always plural. And the other thing is, for example, when you show the last graph, what I want to do is get rid of the cube and turn it into a sphere.
Yeah, exactly right.
Because the cube doesn't make any sense. It will just collapse by itself. The sphere will keep its shape. So anyway, very cool. Thank you, Steve. So, Anne, how are you feeling and what you take away today?
Oh, microphone, Anne.
Thank you, Raffers. Okay, I think first and foremost is to thank Manu and Steve for having that extra fine definition between topography and topology. Okay, so what makes that donut and a mug topography and when it's topology? That was very, very clear. Thank you very much. And then Joe for linking it to business, and Peter for making the M&A so very, very clear. So yeah, a lot of clarity there. Thank you very much. And over to Susan. How do you feel and what's your takeaway, Susan?
I'm very appreciative for all the hard work that Steve has put in on coming to an understanding and all the hard work that Manu has done to bending to my understanding, which must be a challenge. And I am unbelievably grateful for the presence of Kelly, who started all this, who made it possible, who holds the space for it. And I take away that I can understand this better. I am not there yet. Catalina, how do you feel and what are you taking away?
Thank you, Susan. Well, part of me feels a bit confused because I understand perhaps the need to understand the masks of things, but I guess that I need perhaps a bit more of the less technicality of it sometimes to understand something. It's like the great video at the end to understand how the yin and yang is actually multidimensional rather than just in one place. That was great. So part of me feels confused, but I know that from confusion comes clarity, so all good. Very grateful for the space that Steve and Manu and Rafa have continue keeping this pace of learning and understanding one baby step at a time of those concepts, and everyone else for the presence and the contribution. It's interesting to kind of have the feeling that and you have a bond with people that most people have never actually seen in the flesh. So yeah, and my takeaway is kind of hard to define, but just like perhaps Alfonso said, it's the understanding, and Kelly has always said, once you understand cycles, you actually kind of had a grasp on the system itself. So that's it. Pete, how do you feel and what your takeaway?
Thanks, Kat. I'm feeling pretty good. I loved Susan sharing that the word grok came from a science fiction novel. That put grok up in my words. And I think it was Steve who said it. I'm not sure if it was somebody else. But my reality comes from my perception. And my brain didn't fully understand all of the technicalities and mathematics and hard science of today's call. But in my perception, what I did understand was the fundamental interconnectedness of things, and that universal principles that may be designed for science can be applied to life or business, and
vice versa.
And vice versa. I also want to say that what I said at the start, I'm very grateful to everyone on the call for the last 2 years that we've been here. 2 years, holy shit. And making us welcome, and we're not leaving. We're just going to be more occasional now, and I do have some sadness about that, but life is what life is at the moment. And the other thing that I'm actually grateful for this call, and from now on it might be me watching it on videos, is it is a place where discussion can be had without prejudice. And my experience of this group has been that we may disagree about 1,001 things, but we can discuss them in a spirit of rigorousness with an undercurrent of harmony. And in a world where we're in a cancel culture, if someone doesn't agree with you, they want to cancel you, where corporations are censoring, where open discussion is frowned upon. This call has been like an oasis of both critical thinking and heart-centered welcomeness. So I'm very appreciative of that. Joseph, how do you feel, and what are you taking away today, mate?
I feel very good and very lucky. Manu and Steve, for what you're doing is really hard work, and you're integrating some very difficult concepts in a very consumable way. And that takes a lot of work, but and I recognize that. And so I sincerely appreciate it more than you'll ever know. So that's my first takeaway. The second takeaway is that what you're doing is you're adding intellectual rigor into seeing the whole. And that is really important and practical on a number of levels. So, I mean, I won't go through the whole thing, but again, you know, just seeing the donut and connecting it to business and seeing how that works into the whole. That was a major kind of breakthrough for me. And it's very, very, very practical, because sometimes it's not only just seeing the first part of a business, and going back to really quickly, the Amazon cloud, there's elastic cloud compute. They were selling capacity, and everybody said there's no money in that. You know, there's not a lot of money in that. But what they saw is that there was something in the infrastructure they were providing companies. Then they could sell them everything else. They could sell them all the analytical tools. They could sell them storage. They could sell them. So they saw the system. They didn't just see selling computing space. So that is seeing the whole. And what you're doing is training our our minds to see every angle of the whole. And if you can do that, then you'll see that how that is part of the entire system. Like it's not just one step out, it's 5 steps out that you're starting to see. And you're starting to see multi-dimensionals. And you see that how everything is interconnected. So in creating a virtual world, when I used to teach kids about cloud, I said, you know, it's like they gave you the roads, the sidewalks. You're just building your house. You're just building your house in their neighborhood, in a sense. They're providing infrastructure as a service. But, you know, they own all the stores and everything around it. Anyway, I'm not going to go on too long. But what you're adding by giving us all the geometry of thought is the intellectual rigor that I need to really expand my mind. Peter and Kat, I'm going to miss you, but I'll hopefully still see you. You know, I definitely miss you guys. And Kelly, I'm glad you made it through the call. So, and it's wonderful to see you. Alfonso, how do you feel? And what are you taking away from today?
It was wonderful being in the call for a long time. I've been listening, and I've been reading, and I've been studying. Almost every Monday I do this, but it's a privilege being with you, and I'll try to be more times with you on Saturday nights. Thank you, Stefan, and thank you, Manu, for your graphics, and thank you for your time, and thanks for continuing to hold the space. And it's a privilege to see Kelly back. Rafael, sorry, Stefan, what do you take away?
Okay.
Kelly.
That's me.
Okay.
Kelly.
Thank you, Alfonso. It's good to see you too. I have to say that I didn't take in half of it, so it shows I got a long way to go. What I will say is that it's the endeavor. It's like we talk about cycles, and we talk about systems and all the rest of it, but really when it comes down to it, comes down to the individual and what they're doing. And for me, to be able to get to so many like-minded people as we have on this call is a privilege. And I thank you for that. My takeaway is I got a long way to go. So I'm sorry for that. Manu, how do you feel and what do you take away?
I really feel thankful and grateful. Kelly, I mean, you've been here as a testimony of what you call that endeavor. I say endeavor. That is, you know, in spite of circumstances, you make the effort to be here with us for 2 hours. That's really, really laudable. That is inspiring, and we appreciate it. I thank everybody. I thank everybody for their participation wholeheartedly. Peter and Catalina, it is a little bit sad, but I'm sure that there's a bug in you. I don't know what you're going to do about it. You're going to be back here soon, I'm sure. Yeah. You'll find a way to solve that, that problem. What I take away here is the importance of duality and cycle, and understanding that to application, because if we don't apply, it would be nice, but it will not be useful. We really need to have clarity in the multi-dynamic dimensional world, and then be able to kind of collapse things into things that are more palpable and sense in order to make constructs that improve our living together, our progress. And as Kelly said, it starts with the individual. And the individual is a system that is interacting with other systems to build upon and creating that bigger system that works better for everybody. And that's really what I take away here, is that we continue on the road, on the trajectory to Veritas. It is multidimensional, it is curved, it is folded. We unfold it for a time, and then we see light, and then we use that light for things that improve our beings. So Steve, how do you feel? What do you take?
I feel great with 9 folks on this call besides myself. I'm grateful, Alfonso, for you coming in and then jumping right in and being willing to kick shins with the rest of us as we try to grapple, as we test and grapple with the ideas that are presented. So thank you, Alfonso. Thank you, everybody. Susan's a quiet force back there, but on Wednesday, Susan and Raffers and I and Manu meet, and I just sit and listen to them talk, and then try to put it all together and present something out here that means something to me. So I'm really grateful. It's a real opportunity to me, and to see Kelly here, who started this whole thing for 15 years or more, and to be able to pick up the baton for a short time while he gets situated around again and just carry it out there for a little while. It's a real honor for me, you guys. I have such respect for each of your minds and brains, and I'm just honored to be here. My takeaway on this is I get to look again. You know, I'm slowly getting the 720 plus 720 is 1440, and I think I got a new glimpse tonight, Manu. Thank you very much for that. And I'm going to change my graphic over there on the murmuration from 720 to 1440, and I've already thought of different ways to look at that. So I'm working on the 1440. And the other thing I got to acknowledge here is it's 13 minutes after the hour, and this bus is late arriving to the station. Thank you all for your patience. I'll do better next time.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Have a good evening or good day.
Take care.
Good night.
Good night.
Bye all. I love you guys.
Thanks. Bye.